Creek. Now, the Western mining history, you can go there, westernmininghistory.com. You can find out a lot about this, but they have great history on old mining towns. Go check that out. Cripple Creek, this is still a town, and we'll find out a little bit about what's going on today. They've got a gallery of some 76 photos. It was settled in about 1891, and as you can see in this photo, if you're on the video, there it is in 1897, and pretty populated, right? A lot of little buildings there, a lot of digging going on. Colorado became part of the U.S. territory in 1861, and it became a state in 1876. And Bob Womack and his brother William, they came in from Kentucky with their sister into an area now called Colorado Springs. Back then it was the sister to Colorado City. And this is a town east of Pikes Peak. They bought a ranch about 40 miles southwest on the west side of Pikes Peak in 1876. And they made some discoveries there. If you're not familiar with Pikes Peak, I've done a pretty extensive, I don't know if I've done a video, but I know I've done a podcast. There are so many minerals to get up in there, so many beautiful, wonderful things to find, and I went through that in great depth. If you're ever up there, there's still areas you can go collect when it's that time of year that you can do it. So you might want to check it out. There's some fabulous specimens up there. Well, anyway, Bob, while he was working on his ranch, he tried his hand at some prospecting, and he found a little bit of gold here or there, but nothing to really say, oh, I'm going to be rich, I'm going to be famous, nothing like that. Until he went to an area that they called Poverty Gulch. This was in about October 1890. And the pictures don't want to load up too well right now, so hopefully they will. But maybe we'll have to come back to that. Here's another picture of the area about 1891. You can see that there's just a few log cabins. Nothing too spectacular there going on. Not a huge mining town, but it started to build. They invested in a gold mine, one that was fake because they had salted it, which is where they sprinkle a little bit of gold around, and that made people kind of weary of the Pikes Peak West region for quite a while. So other discoveries started to happen, and then the gold rush happened. This happened again around Poverty Gulch. Finally, Bob would become a millionaire, you would think, but he sold his claim too early for $300. He died in 1909, very poor and very far from wealthy, but there was wealthy people who made it quite rich. Here is a view from Fremont, soon to become Cripple Creek, Colorado in 1892. Winfield Stratton was one of the early believers in Bob's story, and he ventured over to the Poverty Gulch area. He was a carpenter living in Colorado City, and he was interested in mining. He took a few college courses at the College School of Mines, and here it is. Here's Mr. Roberts. Look at that cabin. That's what it took to be a carpenter back then. I'd be rich. I'm sure he could build more than that. I'm sure he did. But there's his cabin. You can see those big old, looks like massive elk horns. Jeez, just crazy, crazy. And there's a couple old timers here. One's playing a flute, and the other one's playing a fiddle. They're out there in the hills taking a break from a hard day of mining. Well, anyway, they struck gold at Battle Mountain, which is near Victor, July 4th, 1891, and they named it, it's one of the famous mines in there, Stratton Independence Mine. Stratton became one of the group of elite millionaires, one of the few that were made rich from the gold in the area. Some of the people that got rich there were selling a lot of tools, right? They owned the stores in town. They had cattle that were grazing in the Broken Box Ranch after about 1885, which was west of Poverty Gulch, near the Mount Pisgah, if I'm saying that right. And after the gold strikes, Bennett and Myers laid out the town on the ranch. And the main street was across the center of town, was named for Bennett. And then Myers Avenue was to the south. You can see here some early homesteaders there, and looks like they've got an ore bucket, so they are above the mine and they are working the mine. This is the Hillside Mine in Cripple Creek, about 1893. Now these buildings were put together with split wood that would be crudely milled because they didn't have a lot of water there, so it would be pretty hard to mill wood in this area unless they could get down by the creek. So mills would go up and people were finding gold. People were looking for gold everywhere, and the town by Fremont became known as Cripple Creek. And it may be from, it says the name may be from cattle falling in the creek and injuring their legs, but nobody seems to know for sure. The main road was a wagon road, and the stagecoach connected this by 1891, and Cripple Creek was touted in local newspapers in 1982 as the chance of a lifetime, and not a health resort, but a wealth resort with yellow gold found at the grassroots in the rock formation. The town had nearly 6,000 residents by 1884. The town became part of the Cripple Creek Mining District, and it ran miles north, south, east, and west. Hundreds of mines in the district supplied a total of over 22 million ounces of gold in 25 years. Some of the smaller towns surrounding that were Victor and Goldfield. And in about 1892, a little girl named Mabel Barbie had moved there, and her dad couldn't resist the gold. He was looking at the strikes, the new strikes west of Pikes Peak. Her and her brother were from Utah. They lived with relatives in the Midwest while their father got settled in town. Finally, after trips by train, stagecoach, where they were sandwiched together like sardines in a coach drawn by 6 horses just hours away from arriving in their new home, she was awakened and led outside to stand in a line with other stagecoach riders. The stagecoach had been struck by bandits that moved down the line to confiscate any valuables. Well, she had $1 and she didn't want to lose it, so she tried hiding it in her mouth. Well, at some point she realized they wanted her to talk, so she faked like she had a cough, like a sore throat, and that's how she got the $1 in there. But the bandits were laughing at her, and she couldn't figure out why. So he just overlooked the coin, but he took another silver $1 from the loot that he'd stole and stuck it in his mouth, laughing. And she wrote this down in her memoirs about the life of the town in 1958. So she'd been there for quite a while. You can see this Cripple Creek map, kind of hand-drawn, where in 1895 you can see how the town was set up, where the different mines were. These type of things were really collectible. Power and electric and all that stuff had reached the town by 1892. They had 2 railroads completed to reach the area. Hundreds of men building the lines. The Midway Terminal Railway connected the Cripple Creek to divide the North by 1895. They built a reduction mill. This is where they would grind down the ore, try to hydrate it, get the good stuff. They did that. This was an area that was called Florence, at the end of Florence and Cripple Creek Rail Line, about 30 miles to the south. The Cripple Creek District Railway, the short line, was built over the mountains between the two towns in the 1900s. The other line that was racing to finish this was the Florence Cripple Creek Rail Mine. Then many fires hit the town about 1896. 4 days apart, wooden buildings burnt to a crisp. Even a reservoir of water north of town could not put out the fire. The town was rebuilt mainly by using brick because they didn't want it to burn down again. There was about 20,000 people living in the creek area before the fires, but many were left homeless and left on many trains, special trains. There it is, some of the havoc of the fires. You can see that giant plume there. 1896. Now, the Stratton Independence Mine near Victor was sold to a British group in 1900. The southwest corner of the El Paso County, including the Cripple Creek Mining District, was separated into its own county in 1901, and Cripple Creek became the county seat. There's also that area, the county jail that was built in 1901, now houses the Outlaw and Lawmen Jail Museum, where you can go there and see a history of some of the famous people, good and bad, of that time, and these characters that ran the streets, the mines, and the businesses and criminal activities of the time. In 1900, the production tapered off, but the population was about 10,000, and it dropped over the next several decades. Got quite small. The Independence Mine changed hands. Sam Strong, he bought and sold and leased a number of mines and set up a money loaning operation in Colorado Springs. He got shot in a ballroom brawl in the Newport Saloon in 1901. The shooter, Grant Crumley, was co-owner of the bar, was accused of murder but pleaded self-defense and was acquitted. There was quite a bit of gambling and gunfighting and things like that. Strong was notorious for his wild ways and was sued in 1901 by a couple of ladies of the evening. He happened to marry what was called a respectable, man, I can't talk right. Somebody who is respectable. Her name was Nellie Lewis, and these prostitutes got over $50,000 in damages in this scandalous court case, and then there was other settlements that were made out of court. There you can see the one of the big businesses of the time, wholesale, retail dealers and importers of wines and liquors and cigars. So, yeah, it was a pretty up-and-coming town of the day, but it died off real quickly. There was problems with the people who worked in the mines and unions and the way they were being treated. They were given a reduction. They brought in the unions. They fired people. Some of the other miners put their money together to get some soup kitchens going. People got shot. Mines got blown up. It was a real time of chaos in the mines. They brought in the state militia to try to straighten things up. Finally said people were working 8 hours a day and they're getting paid $3 a day. So at that time, that was actually better. And then that happened in 1903 to 1904, and they called it the Colorado Mining War. So as a result, organized unions were banned for a while at that time. Also, the prostitutes, there's quite a bit of them. Myers Avenue Madams, there's a whole history of some of these ladies of the evening. Prostitutes and madams flourished in Cripple Creek and numbered over 300 by 1896, and the fires kind of put a damper on their business, and but they got right back to business again. One local madam, Pearl DeVere, rebuilt the old Homestead Parlor House on Myers Avenue, offering the latest conveniences. electricity, telephone, bathroom, and running water. Pearl died of morphine overdose in 1897, and her property was sold at an auction. And here's one of the old hotels right there. You'd walk down these walkways here, and they'd hear you. And if they were ready for business, the door would open, and a pretty-looking gal or a gal would look out at you, hoping for some business. They did outlaw prostitution. That happened about 1902, but you know, it still went on to happen. They had membership clubs to try to avoid this. They had rules that allowed working girls 1 day per week that they could stop on Bennett Avenue, but they were prohibited from wearing skirts higher than 6 inches above their ankles. Can you imagine that? Anything shorter than that was scandalous. Finally, in 1915, prostitution became illegal. Businesses could be raided, and it was tough. They didn't allow prostitution there again. The old Homestead Parlor House became a boarding house in 1917 and was turned into a brothel museum in 1958. Gold mining made a comeback around the Great Depression time when gold values went up a little bit in the 1930s. And then World War II came and the mines were ordered closed by the government. In fact, the government confiscated a lot of gold back up around that time. Was not good. So there's a lot of national historical landmarks there. The Cripple Creek Historical District has registered this town, commercial and residential buildings, many of them as preserved. Today there's a huge American Veterans Rally at Cripple Creek. You can go there. There's restaurants, things like that you can go do. And gambling was legalized here about 1980 or 1990, I believe. 1990. And all kinds of people come there to visit Cripple Creek. And it is a real tourist stop. There's only about one mine that's in operation. The Cripple Creek and Victor gold mines, open pit mines, have been uncovering gold and silver since 1994. And there's another mine that's not producing, the Molly Kathleen mine. You can go down a mining cart, drop straight down over 1,000 feet below ground and ride that mining cart, which is a lot of fun. Here's some of the old areas here. The world's greatest gold camp, Cripple Creek. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. I know I haven't done an update in a while. I got this new software, so hopefully that works out. Hopefully this video is not too long and I can post it accordingly. With that, I want to wish you all a wonderful day. Remember, rockhounds don't die, they petrify.